Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a tradition unlike any other. It's the SFL Scenario Show, Season 21 edition. Tonight, we have 8 scenarios to break down. Won't be as long as it typically has been in the past, which is a good thing for our late-night crew. We've got Jack Stata's Hunter Norwood with us. What's going on, Hunter?
Not much, Cam. How you doing?
Doing great, man. We've also got Tyler Falk here with us. Long day, Tyler, in the booth. And we're almost done with this season.
Just a bit. I mean, thanks, Mike, for putting me on two of the craziest games of the season right here at the end.
We've also got Rochelle Colston here with us. What's going on, Ray?
Not much. Happy to be here.
And we've got a long-lost friend, Yogi Barr, Mr. Builder.
It's our long-lost tradition, Cam.
Yes, it absolutely is. But it's wonderful to have you back here, and it's wonderful to break down these scenarios. All right, here's what we know. They are in green. Congratulations to the Minnesota Legend. They won the Central Division tonight with a 4-8 record. Totally shocking to have a team with a losing record like that. But they have a positive point differential. In fact, Tyler, they had a positive point differential before they even won tonight. This team has played a lot of tough teams, a lot of playoff teams, really close, really well throughout the season. They ended up being the best, and we're going to find out who they may play when it's all said and done.
I mean, it's kudos to Minnesota in general. I mean, they start off on the right foot. They destroy their heated rivals in Indianapolis, much to my chagrin and Adams and Chad's and the rest of Indy, but I digress. And so that they had that hanging over them. And so going in their first few 4 weeks before they hit their first bye, 3-1, they're looking like the standout favorites for the Central Division, and then they just lose for 2 months straight, which was completely off the script for Minnesota. Just a great win tonight. They take care of Tulsa, and most of those losses came under 10 points. So they kept, like you said, they kept them close. They kept themselves in it, and they kept Colin Hart going. 20 plus touchdowns on the ground. He is going to be the key to keep Minnesota going in these playoffs.
The Canton Classics are the only division winner with a 7-5 record. So DC's head-to-head does not come into play since Vancouver and San Diego are also in the mix, unless the DC Dragons survive the tiebreakers and take over the 7th spot. Is that right, Hunter? Right? If Vancouver and San Diego are eliminated before DC, then the head-to-head would come into play, right?
Correct. As far as the tiebreakers that we've done for, I don't know, past 10 seasons now.
So we'll see if that happens tonight. If Canton gets pushed to the 8 at all, or if they remain in the 7 spot. Jack Wall, your invite was lost in the mail because the last 2 times I've invited you to something you've bailed. So there you go. You put yourself out there like that, I'm going to put you right back down. Okay, so here we go. Scenario 1 here in SFL Season 21. What if Florida, Arizona, and Alamo City win? It's Scenario 1. Now, the first 4 scenarios we're going to do are all Alamo City wins, and then we will shift to see what happens when Fort Worth wins, because those are a little bit more crazy. So, if Alamo City wins, they would beat the Fort Worth Toros on a head-to-head tiebreaker, and they would get the number 1 seed in the playoffs. Florida would be firmly in the 3 spot. Baltimore and Arizona would be tied at 9-3. That strength of victory is not close, although it did get a little bit closer. Baltimore would win on SOV and get that first round bye over Arizona, and it would be Arizona playing Minnesota in a rematch of a game a couple of weeks ago. Seattle would firmly be in the 6th spot on a 2-game slide at 8-4. Then we get down to our 4-way tie at 7-5. Remember, with Arizona winning, that means a Vegas loss. So we'll find out what's going on down there. But first, We have a 4-way tie at 7 and 5. The common opponents and head-to-head cannot break it. So we go to our first SOV tiebreaker. That's San Diego at 357. They would be the 10 seed. Vancouver, DC, Canton. No common opponents. Not all of them, anyway. And no head-to-head can apply there because DC and Canton did not play Vancouver. We are back to SOV. The worst SOV between the three is Canton. But if we go to our tiebreakers here, division winners over non-division winners is the second tiebreak. Strength of victory is the fourth. So at this point, Hunter, Canton would be the 7, correct?
So the way I was seeing it would be Vancouver would be eliminated from this tie-breaking procedure, and then we would start over. Because we work by eliminating teams.
Correct.
And then starting over from the top.
Correct. So when we've got 3 teams, right? Then we would go to yes, correct. So Canton would have been the 7 seed even when we were talking about San Diego, right? It doesn't come into play that tiebreaker changes unless DC survives the rest. That's what you're saying, right, Hunter?
Yes.
All right, so Canton is the 7. Vancouver is worse SOV than DC, not by much, 0.012. So Vancouver would be your 9 seed. And now we get to the fact that DC beat Canton head-to-head, and Canton would slide into the 8 spot. Right?
Correct.
Correct.
It was originally reported earlier this week that that Canton was the 7 no matter what. We came out earlier this weekend and revised that, and you can see how that applies right there. So in this scenario, DC would play San Diego in the 7-10. Vancouver would play Canton in the 8-9. And then we got to get down here to our 6-6 mess. So in this scenario, we have 4 teams tied. Houston was previously eliminated earlier this week because you can see that they have the lowest SOV in this tiebreaker. So they would be your 15 spot. Then you've got Vegas, Charleston, and Louisiana all at 6-6 in this scenario. Vegas did not play either Charleston or Louisiana. So we go back to strength of victory, and Louisiana clearly loses out. They're going to need that win over Florida, which they did not get in this scenario. And so Louisiana is going to go to the 14 spot on SOV. And then Charleston and Vegas. How about this, folks? No common opponents. No head-to-head. SOV is the same. So are we saying that Charleston's tougher schedule gets them in the playoffs on this scenario?
Yep.
Yep.
Woo! When was the last time we had strength of schedule determine who makes the playoffs and who doesn't?
4 seasons.
Man.
That's rough.
So Charleston vaults to the 11 seed. They would play Seattle in the first round. Minnesota would play Arizona, and Vegas would be out on strength of schedule 472 to 500. So Charleston, you are the first winner of a 6-6 logjam, and there is your playoff standings. Arizona was eliminated or moved to 5th on SOV. Okay, we move on to scenario 3, folks. That is going to be if Vegas beats Arizona, all the rest of it stays the same. So you can see Alamo City wins. They take the number 1 seed over Fort Worth in head-to-head. Florida's your 3. Baltimore's your 4, and this time they are all alone. So because Vegas won, Arizona and Seattle were tied at 8-4, but Seattle beat Arizona earlier this season. Is that right? Am I remembering that correctly?
What was the call?
Arizona lost to Seattle, right? Week 3?
Correct.
Yep.
So it would be Seattle as the 5 and Arizona as the 6 in that situation. So Arizona falls down one spot. All right, we're back to our 7-5 mess, which now includes Las Vegas. Hunter's is scenario 3
my
ready?
bad. I didn't realize Vegas. Hold on,
Florida,
hold on.
Vegas, Alamo City with wins.
Yes. I just didn't sort Vegas back up. Go ahead.
All right, let's take a look at the log jam at 7-5. So in this scenario, all the 6 and 6 teams are out. All right. Las Vegas, San Diego, Vancouver, DC, Canton, all 7-5. We've got an SOV of 357 on San Diego. So they would be your 11 seed on SOV. Vegas climbs. Vegas, Vancouver, DC, Canton. Spicy. Canton is currently occupying the 7 unless DC overtakes them. So on elimination, we have a tie. DC and Vancouver on strength of victory. They did not play each other. They have no common games. Very similar to the Charleston Vegas situation. So we
Back
go,
strength of schedule
So Vancouver.
yep. So we go strength of schedule. That puts
again.
DC in the 10 spot, which is going to protect Canton at the 7 spot. As
Yes.
as DC goes to 10, helps Vegas move up the ladder. What a win it would be for Vegas to top Arizona. Okay, so DC down to 10 in strength of schedule. So now we have Vancouver and Vegas left. They played this year. That was a Monday night game. And it was a Vancouver win in week 3.
Boom. And then
So Vancouver would be your 8. Vegas would be your 9 in a rematch.
wow.
How about that? And that
they
was
also
it.
play in. They
Go
also
ahead.
played in Vancouver, if I thought right, Cam. Or am I?
You're right. It was their home opener. So that would be a rematch of a Monday Night Spectacular that was super defensive. 19-10 was the final. I think that was the last time Vancouver's offense got shut down. was Vegas, but they didn't have enough offense to counter. So that's your 8-9 rematch there. All Louisiana, Houston, Charleston, they're all out. We don't really need to fiddle around with any tiebreakers there just to keep the show moving. So it would be Minnesota taking on Seattle in this scenario. You have San Diego taking on Arizona, a rematch from the
Ooh.
convention.
Yeah.
How about that? DC would take on Canton, a rematch of last week when Canton faked the extra point to go for 2 to tie and lost 31-29. And then a rematch of Vancouver-Vegas, a 19-10 Monday nighter. So a lot of rematches in this potential scenario, but some really good, juicy matchups in there regardless. How about that?
Pretty cool.
All right. Did we see anything with scenario 3? Anything wrong with that?
Good.
Okay. We're going to go to scenario 7 next. Hunter, Louisiana's winning instead of Florida. We still have Vegas and Alamo City winning.
7. Okay. We're skipping 5 now.
Yeah, we're going to go to 7 so that we only have to change one result. All right. You know when that's ready, Hunter?
Charleston's going to be rooting for Arizona big time.
Yeah, so far.
Yeah.
At this point, there's only one spot for a 6-win team. So a Vegas or a Louisiana win is going to hurt Charleston in every one of these scenarios.
Yeah.
Miles
You're
F.
good, by the way.
Thank
Okay.
you. Miles FH in the chat. Can someone please explain how DC passes Canton in scenario 1, but none of the other scenarios? I joined late. Thank you. All right, so your tiebreakers, look at these interdivisional tiebreakers. Your first tiebreaker is head-to-head or head-to-head sweep. Your second tiebreaker is division winner over non-division winner. And then your fourth tiebreaker is strength of victory. So when you're looking at scenario 1, because DC and Canton are the last two 7 and 5 teams remaining, we go back to the top of the tiebreak, and DC beat Canton head-to-head. But in scenario 3, DC is eliminated much earlier. They're the 10 spot with a worse strength of schedule than Vegas. So because they're not involved, Canton wins the second tiebreak because they didn't play Vancouver or Las Vegas. So the second tiebreak trumps a third or fourth tiebreak. So that's why Canton is in the 7 there, and Canton is in the 8 in scenario 1. Hope that makes sense. Okay, scenario 7, we are good to go. Alamo City gets the number 1 seed on head-to-head over Fort Worth. We have Florida and Baltimore, but that is also a head-to-head win. This one for Florida dating back to week 1 of the convention. And they say week 1 doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So Florida's the 3, Baltimore's the 4. So far, the top 4 remains the same. You've got Arizona and Seattle. You've got the same situation where Seattle owns the head-to-head over Arizona. Now we are for the first time playing a scenario where a 7 and 5 team misses the playoffs. So if Louisiana, Vegas, and Alamo City win, someone with a winning record is missing the playoffs, and who is that going to be? Louisiana, Vegas, San Diego, Vancouver, DC, or Canton? It's not going to be Canton, but here it is. It's your worst strength of victory is San Diego, 357. The Mavericks in this scenario would miss the playoffs. They have not clinched a playoff spot as of this evening.
Wow.
All right, so we're back with San Diego now out of the way, which is what we saw in the other tie break. We now get back to our 7 and 5 logjam, but this time Louisiana is involved with a much tougher. They're bringing a big SOV to the table and are going to try to mix things up. But at this point, it looks like Louisiana in this scenario would be in the playoffs. So back to strength of victory, our fourth tiebreaker here. And it looks like Louisiana, even with the win over Florida, still has the worst SOV of any of these teams at 405. So Louisiana would be your 11 seed, but would still be in the playoffs. Now, Vegas, Vancouver, DC, Canton. Strength of victory. Canton's a division winner, so Vancouver is next to go, 429. Vegas can do really well for themselves with a win.
Yep.
That's becoming clear. Okay, Vegas, DC, Canton. It looks like DC has the worst SOV, 440. So DC is going to drop to the 9 spot. And then Vegas would move to the 8 spot. And then Canton gets it on a division winner tiebreak. Is that right, Hunter? DC, Vegas, and Canton. Canton has the worst strength of victory, but being a division winner is the second tiebreaker. SOV
Yes,
is fourth.
this is the same situation as scenario 1.
Yep.
Well,
No.
just to play devil's advocate, if we ever hit the second spot in anything, division winner over non-division winner, that does not trump anything. So if we have a division winner by that point, does that not trump anything?
Well, right. So right now, right, if you have a division winner, the only thing that trumps being a division winner is if they lost head-to-head, right? So
Right.
DC has to
So-
survive the 7-5 tiebreak in order to get to a point where head-to-head applies. That
Right.
occurred in scenario 1. It does not occur in 3 or 7.
Okay.
Right?
Now,
So
correct.
here's what I'm going after. When you start at 7 and 5, from breaking everything to start with, we hit number 2 because there's no head-to-head sweep between all 4. Going back to scenario 1, there's 4 7 and 5 teams. You have a division winner as you're breaking it down. That does not supersede the further along tie breaks. We have to continue to break it down in order to get to that slot, or because Canton's a division winner, automatically that puts him above everybody else. I thought that was how we did it in the past, but
Well,
I could be wrong.
You always want the most important tiebreakers to be relevant, if necessary, right? You always want head-to-head to apply, if it does apply. And in scenario 3, it does apply. And in 7 and 1, it does not apply. Or, I'm sorry, I did that backwards. This is common for the scenario show to totally screw up the audience. In scenario 1, it does apply head-to-head. 3 and 7, it does not apply. Because there's another team involved with a better resume, right? Vegas's resume is better than DC's based on the 4th tiebreaker, right? 452 to 440. So because their resume is better, how can DC be above Canton? Doesn't make sense.
Right.
I think the other thing, possibly to what you're saying, Tyler, is so Canton, once we get to the second tiebreaker, they're separated out, and then we break the tie with the remaining teams.
Yep.
That's one part, but then also, in the past, we've done it, quote unquote, differently in the past, because I don't believe this has ever happened in the past.
Right.
Because most division winners are the 8 and 4s, or they're a top 7 and 5 that just hasn't played any of the other teams, or if they have, they've beaten those teams.
Yeah,
or...
it's very, very unusual that we have a division winner who lost to a wild card with the same record. So I guess that's kind of a new experience.
And that wild card has a strong strength of victory.
Yeah, right.
And in this case, stronger. So yeah,
It's due to be the division winners over non-division winners are the second tiebreak, not the first tiebreak.
Correct.
Is because those two teams got close together, head-to-head supersedes division winner in scenario 1.
Correct. So what we're learning here is that DC would benefit from an Arizona win, because in scenario 1, DC's got a home game, right? But in 3 and 7, DC's on the road because Vegas is involved, and Vegas's resume is mucking up DC's playoff picture right now. So that Arizona Vegas game is proving to be maybe much more important to DC than we had initially anticipated. All right, so let's look at these matchups. Seattle, Minnesota is the 5-12 still. Arizona would take on Louisiana in the 6-11 game. We haven't seen that matchup yet this season. Canton would take on Vancouver, which was the same matchup as scenario 1. This time it's the 7-10. In that other game, it was 8-9. And then Vegas would take on DC in the 8-9 matchup in this scenario.
So they could muck up DC even more.
Yeah, because they would get the game at home.
Yep.
Because they've got the better resume. If you're just looking at Vegas and DC on paper, they have no head-to-head. They have no common opponents. They're both wild card teams. So you have to go to, who have they beaten? And Vegas, at that point, with 2 wins over Arizona, would have a more impressive resume. It goes back to DC losing 2 close ones to Baltimore, losing a close one to Florida, all those things, right?
Yep.
Tough. All right, here we go. So scenario 5, we're moving on. So we've got the difference between 7 and 5 is that Arizona wins the game. not Vegas. So now we have Arizona and Louisiana winning this contest. We've got another situation.
Louisiana's in.
Yeah, we have
Louisiana's in there.
another situation where all the 6 and 6s are out. There's not enough, and every team that gets to 7 and 5 is in the playoffs. So far, the only team with a winning record to miss the playoffs so far is San Diego.
Yep.
Hunter, let me know when those tie breaks are ready.
You are good.
All right, scenario 5, we've got Alamo City head-to-head over Fort Worth. We've got Baltimore head-to-head over, Florida head-to-head over Baltimore, same as 7. Actually, first, we have a
Three-way
tie at
right.
9 and 3. Now we got to check SOV. I believe Arizona's is the worst. It is.
Yes.
407. So Arizona can't do much. They're going to be the 5 off of SOV, and then Florida has the head-to-head over Baltimore, so you still have the top 4 remaining the same in every scenario that Alamo City wins. Arizona is the 5. Seattle is the 6. They stand alone as the only 8 and 4 record. Now we're back to our 7 and 5 logjam for the time being. DC is ahead on the second tiebreak. Canton, but we'll see if DC can survive this gauntlet of Louisiana, San Diego, Vancouver as well. So with Vegas out of the picture, but Louisiana in the picture, let's see how that affects DC. Here's our SOVs, and once again, San Diego bringing up the rear, 357. They have the lowest resume, and so they're going to take a back seat at 11. Louisiana, Vancouver, and DC remain. By the way, for the audience, we're going right to SOV because we know that Vancouver has not played any of these teams. They're playing on the other side of a schedule than Louisiana and DC did. So,
DC, Vancouver, Louisiana.
Yep, Louisiana is last, which is a shame for DC because DC beat both Canton and Louisiana this season. But with Louisiana being out, they don't get the head-to-head sweep. Louisiana just not as good of a resume as Vancouver, so they go into the 10 spot. So now Vancouver and DC are at it again, and Vancouver is the worst. So here you go. DC is going to move up to 7 because they have the head-to-head over Canton once those two teams are the only two tied.
Right.
Vancouver at 9. So this Canton-Vancouver game, this 8-9 game is still the same as it was in scenario 1. We also had Vancouver-Canton in scenario 7. So 3 out of the 4 scenarios so far, Canton is playing Vancouver. DC is going to take on Louisiana this time in the playoffs. So DC could play San Diego, Canton, Vegas, or Louisiana.
Wow.
It's a mess for the Dragons right now. But again, in this scenario, they at least get a home game. San Diego would play Seattle in the 11-6 matchup. That would be exciting. And then Arizona against Minnesota in a rematch in that bracket. So those are your 4 scenarios with Alamo City winning. So this show could be over in like 5 minutes. Who knows? We're going to double check everything. But the only thing different about any of these scenarios is that Fort Worth beats Alamo City, and that kind of screws up kind of could potentially screw up the strength of victory. So, Hunter, we're going to go to 6. The only thing different between 5 and 6 is that Fort Worth beat Alamo City.
Yeah.
Tyler, I botched you there. But I was just moving everything over from 5.
No worries. I can fiddle.
Yeah, give them 12. Yeah.
Let's not.
And because Florida doesn't win in this scenario, the Alamo City, Florida doesn't come into play because Florida does have a shot at the 2 seed because division winner over non-division winner. But not there just yet. Hunter, let me know when SOV's ready, and we'll see if we got any difference.
Yes. Let me get Canton back up there. All right, go ahead.
All right, once again, all the 6 and 6 teams are out. So, previously, San Diego was your 11 spot. They still are. Louisiana was your 10 spot. They still are. Vancouver was your 9 spot. They still are. And then DC on the head-to-head. You know what's interesting here? When you think about it, strength of victory, that means that somebody... I don't think it's going to change at all, Hunter, right? Because none of these teams beat Alamo City or Fort Worth. Only Portland beat Alamo City, and they're not in this conversation. So,
yes,
no SOVs should change.
Right.
Right?
right.
More than likely.
I think
More
we,
likely
I
not gonna
mean,
change.
I'm still
Nobody
gonna,
beat Fort
still gonna
Worth,
go
so-
over it, but
yeah, we're still going to go over with a
Yeah.
fine-tooth comb. But don't expect anything you've seen tonight to change. It looks like San Diego is the only team that could potentially miss the playoffs with a winning record. So, all right, so 6 is done. We went through everything. Let's make sure Arizona's is still less than Baltimore's. It is. All right. Now we're going to jump to 8, scenario 8. The only difference here is that Vegas beats Arizona. We're going to drag scenario 7 over. And, well, I guess it'd be 2 changes. Let me, Tyler, let me get the, there you go. Scoop up that 1, 2. And then, Vegas, did I already get it? Yeah.
8 and 4.
Vegas is 7 and 5, and Arizona's 8 and 4. Yeah. Okay. You know when you're ready, Hunter.
all right, you're good.
All right. San Diego still the worst resume. Yes. 357. And then we've got Louisiana, 405. We've got Vancouver, 429.
9.
Then DC is out before Vegas, 440. That keeps Canton at the 7, Vegas at the 8. Seattle with the head-to-head over Arizona.
And
Florida.
San Diego's out again.
Yes, correct. And then Florida with the head-to-head over Baltimore.
25% chance at the moment for San Diego
Correct.
to miss the playoffs.
Correct. And it looks like 50-50 chance for Louisiana to make the playoffs. They just have to win.
And the reason Las Vegas does not jump Canton with the same record because they have no head-to-head sweep. So it's goes to scenario 2, division winner over non-division winner.
Correct. We wouldn't even because Canton and Vegas didn't play, the second tiebreaker goes to did you win your division, and Canton did. And so they stay at the 7. So 7 and 8 are the same, just as 5 and 6 were the same. We jump to scenario 4. Now things get a little bit spicy at the top. So the difference between scenario 4 and scenario 8 is that Florida beats Louisiana. So we should see something very similar to 3.
We're going to have strength of victory between Florida and us.
Actually, no. You'll have
No.
tiebreaker 2 because Florida's a division winner. And Alamo
Right.
City in that
Correct.
scenario
Correct.
is not.
Correct.
So Florida gets the 2 spot. They have a 25% chance at that. Seattle beat Arizona head-to-head. That's the 5-6. And then we've got, Vancouver winning head-to-head over Vegas. Canton's the division winner. DC slips to 10th. Let's double-check the tiebreakers because this SOS is very dangerous here. So San Diego Let me know. Is scenario 4 ready, Hunter?
Yes.
Florida.
You said Vancouver beat Vegas,
Yes.
correct? All right.
Yep.
So you
That's
got
correct.
you got Florida, Vegas, Fort Worth winning, Hunter.
Yeah, it could be. Florida, Vegas, yeah.
Okay. All right. Worst resume, San Diego. Yep, 357. And then DC and Vegas were tied. Last time they are not tied.
I moved it
Vegas.
already. DC and Vancouver are tied. Sorry.
Oh, that's right. DC and
yeah.
Vancouver were tied, and Vancouver had the tougher schedule.
Correct.
542 to 514. So DC goes to 10 on strength of schedule, and then Vancouver beat Vegas head to head. So they take the 8. Vegas goes to the 9. Okay. 4 is good. Really, 3 and 4 are the same. 7 and 8 are the same. 5 and 6 are the same. 1 and 2 are the same. We really only have 4 scenarios going on here, which is pretty wild. Pretty wild. How often do you have the last game of the season where none of the other playoff teams have beaten the top 2 teams? Like, that is bonkers. That is bonkers. All right. Only difference between scenario 4 and scenario 2 is that Arizona beats Vegas, Hunter. We should see the bottom portion of this. Similar. Hunter, let me know when you're ready.
Let's see. All right, go ahead.
Okay. We've got... Oh, this is... Yeah, so we got to double check the 6 and 6 here. We've got Houston with the worst resume, 333. And we've got Louisiana with the next worst resume at 347. And then Vegas and Charleston, again, they are tied at strength of victory, 431.
Wow.
So Charleston is in on the tougher schedule. I mean, that's amazing.
So
SOS.
Go ahead, Hunter.
I will say with the current tie at 431, if Indy won tonight, Vegas would be above, because Vegas beat Indy and Minnesota, and
Yeah.
then they lost to Tulsa and Sioux Falls.
Ugh.
So
wow.
they needed both the teams they beat to win, and at this point they would be at, I believe, 437 or 442.
That's gut-wrenching. So because Indy lost, Vegas is in a position where they cannot make the playoffs if they lose. And what's interesting is San Diego is the only team at 7 and 5 that can potentially make the playoffs, or can potentially miss the playoffs. But Charleston is the only team at 6 and 6 that can make the playoffs.
On strength of schedule, no
On
less.
strength of schedule. I don't know that that's ever happened. A split at the bottom for SOS.
I mean, I can't sing it, but Charleston has a message in a bottle.
No kidding. I mean, that's crazy. Strength of schedule, Charleston's favor. Go ahead, Hunter.
Do you remember what doomed London back in, what was that, 12 or 13? I remember it was something crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was a head-to-head sweep, or it might have just been SOV when people knew less about SOV. But
I think it was either head-to-head or it was strength of schedule. I think it was strength of schedule, Hunter. That's a great memory. I think you're right. I think it came down to... It was either strength of schedule or it came down to who was tied. And then because London was tied with just the right worst teams, they didn't make it. But
I think they'd beaten 2 of the 3, but the third messed it all up. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's run through after Charleston. Let's run through the 7 and 5 teams. San Diego, 7 and 5, 357, worst resume. Then Vancouver is your 9 spot, 417 because Canton is a division winner, and then DC gets the head-to-head there. Okay, so taking a look at it, here it is, just in layman's terms. If Alamo City wins, they get the number 1 seed, and it's Alamo City, Fort Worth, Florida, Baltimore in the top 4. If Fort Worth wins and Florida wins, then Florida is your 2 seed, and Alamo City is your 3 seed. If Florida and my gosh, I'm confusing myself. If Florida and Fort Worth win, then Florida is your 3. Baltimore's your 4. Baltimore's your 4 no matter what. They are locked in there at the 4 spot. They were there in every scenario. Arizona is your 5 seed if they win. That's all of this here. And Arizona is your 6 seed if they lose. So that's what's in line. So if Arizona wins, they get Minnesota in the first round. If Arizona loses, they get San Diego or Louisiana in the first round. So that's what it looks like there. Seattle and Arizona would just swap places. If Arizona wins, Seattle is the 6, and Seattle would play either San Diego or Charleston, depending upon other factors. And then if Seattle was the 5, they would play Minnesota. DC is probably the wildest one of the night outside of Charleston getting in on strength of schedule. DC could play San Diego. They could host San Diego. They could be on the road against Canton. They could be on the road against Vegas, or they could host Louisiana. Any one of those factors. But it's worth noting that DC gets a home game if Arizona wins, and they're on the road if Arizona loses. So Vegas not helping out DC in that regard. But we can say tonight that the DC Dragons have clinched a playoff spot. They, along with Canton, are 7-5 teams that have clinched. Vancouver has also clinched a playoff spot. They would be the as low as the 10 seed if Louisiana and Vegas win. They would be the 9, or the 8. So Vancouver, you have one shot at a first-round home game. That's if Florida and Vegas win. So you need a Florida win and then a Vegas upset because of that head-to-head that you've got over Vegas. That's helping propel you into the 8th spot. So if Vancouver wants a first-round home game, they have a 25% chance at that. They are in the playoffs. All Vegas has to do is win. All Louisiana has to do
is win. They both have to win, yes.
So it's win and in for Louisiana and Vegas. For San Diego, you have a 75% chance at making the playoffs. But if Louisiana and Vegas both win and they both punch their tickets into the postseason, San Diego, you're left at home again with a 7-5 record.
And Charleston has a 25% chance.
They do. They have to hope for the favorites to win. They need Florida and Arizona to take care of business. And if they do, then the Predators will shake off that close loss they had against the Dragons, and they would take on Seattle in the first round of the playoffs. Before we leave it, any thoughts that you all have on potential playoff matchups you would be most looking forward to seeing?
Was it scenario 3 that we had all those rematches from earlier this season?
Correct, yes. Seattle, Arizona, San Diego, the 6-11, Canton, DC, the 7-10, Vancouver, Vegas, the 8-9.
I mean, it would just be so poetic for that to happen, and to get off, because wild card, you have a lot of great scenarios. You have a lot of teams, that match up and play, just randomly a bunch of times. But how about to face someone you've already faced, and for every single matchup to be a rematch, a tough rematch? I think that's probably the most intriguing scenario out of the bunch. To see, a scenario like 1 or 2 where 7 and 8 happen, it would be phenomenal. I don't think we can go wrong.
Here's what's nuts, Tyler. Scenario 7 is the exact opposite, and the only difference is that Louisiana wins. Scenario 7, you have no rematches. Seattle plays Minnesota for the first time. Louisiana plays Arizona. Vancouver plays Canton. DC plays Vegas. We haven't seen any of that this season. So that's like the total opposite of Scenario 3. And then 1 and 5 is a kind of a mismatch of things we've seen and things we haven't.
Arizona either plays Minnesota, San Diego, or Louisiana.
Can't go wrong there. All of those
Yeah.
sound exciting.
Yep.
How about Baltimore, guys? Huh? Biggest winner of the weekend, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they secure a bye and they took
Yeah.
care of Carolina, and Seattle kind of fell apart on them and gave them an opportunity. Seattle will have a first round home playoff game, which is big for them. They've never made the playoffs, right? San Diego hasn't either. They haven't locked it up yet, but they have a 75% shot. Now, San Diego will be on the road. They'll either be the 11 or the 10 seed, and they'll be taking on either Arizona, DC, or Seattle. Tough draw, but San Diego would just love to be there, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
I think it could be interesting with Minnesota at 12. Obviously, if they win, I was looking at that wrong. But either way, I mean, even if Minnesota wins, yeah, they're 4-8, but they've been playing a lot of people tough, and
I wouldn't
Minnesota versus South, yeah.
And wouldn't it be something as well for a San Diego franchise that has new leadership, that's really turned the culture around, has really brought in personnel and people to really, bring football back in a positive way for just San Diego, the city as a whole. I think it would be a great story to see the Mavs in the playoffs for the first time.
Yeah, Canton's going to play Vancouver in 75% of these scenarios. The only scenario in which they would play DC, which is wild, would be if Florida and Vegas won. Now, interesting note, that game was in DC. This one would be in Canton, and Canton is undefeated at home this season.
Right.
So yeah, we stuck the landing tonight, boys and girls. That, what a relief. Rochelle, what do you think? Did we lose Rochelle?
No, I agree with Tyler. I like to see the matchups again.
Fun stuff. Yogi, you're not a part of the broadcast team. We don't get to hear from you often. What do you think of this season? What have been your biggest surprises and exciting things, exciting storylines to follow?
Well, been a lot of storylines watching some of these teams step up that hadn't stepped up before. But I don't know, just one of my biggest highlights is just the free way the game plays. I think it plays much better to what we need, what we use here. That'd be my highlight of the season. But I think we got some big matchups coming up here. Some heavy hitters playing against each other.
Goonhouse asking about it. Probably another Canton fan asking about why DC would get it over Canton in that tiebreaker. Tiebreakers are used to eliminate teams, especially when you have 4 or 5 teams. And DC has the head-to-head over Canton. So when the head-to-head can apply, that is always the primary tiebreaker. That's the tiebreaker that matters the most in the SFL. Did you beat this team? That's more important than what division you played in, what schedule you played, all that other stuff. So when DC and Canton are locked in a two-way tie remaining, they are going to win that because they won that matchup. But if that's not the case and DC is taken out before that tiebreaker applies, then Canton becomes your 7 spot. Canton's got a 50-50 shot at the 7 seed or the 8 seed. Canton gets the 7 seed with a Vegas upset over Arizona, and Canton is the 8 seed with an Arizona victory over Vegas. Anything else, folks? I think we covered it all.
No matter what, Canton gets a home game, no matter what.
Yep.
Yeah. Florida Storm are back.
Yes, they are. Yes, and it's going to be interesting to see. We haven't seen them in Week 14 against Louisiana. We haven't seen that matchup yet either.
Right.
So it's going to be really interesting to see if Louisiana can figure some things out on the final week just in time, as they'll take on either the DC Dragons or the Arizona Scorpions if they are able to pull out a win. So either way, some terrific matchup. Louisiana and DC played earlier this season. It was, I believe, 28-21 Dragons. Very close, very good game. Yeah, that would be a great rematch as well.
But the best game of the year will be Monday night.
Yeah, I hope so. Right, Yogi? Don't let me down.
Yes, sir.
Don't give me a stinker, Alamo City and
We're
Fort
going to
Worth.
give you a good one. We'll give you a good one.
Mark
Greg hasn't slept in 7 days.
Mark wants to know how one gets invited to the scenario show. Well, we've had our crew for how long have we done this, guys? 3 years?
I don't know, forever.
Ever
Seems like
since
forever.
we
Seems
did
like
it
7 seasons.
one time. We did it off air. Was it 1 or 2? And
One or two.
Yeah, I think it was 1. We did it off air, and I was like, man, you know what? Instead of trying to educate everyone on what we learned when we were doing this it's a waste of my time. Why don't we just broadcast it live so that everybody can follow along with us? And it's been a tradition ever since.
But it also helps when we don't have 24 and 32 scenarios.
Yes.
Yeah,
By 2 in the morning, we're like, what?
the 32 was a definite mistake. 16 is doable. We just the ball because we had 27 teams this season.
Right.
There wasn't an additional game to the schedule, so we ended up only with 8 scenarios this season, and then it turned out that 4 of them were just carbon copies because no one had beaten Fort Worth or Alamo City beneath them this season, except for Portland, who sadly at 5-7 came up just short of the playoffs. So yeah, there you go. Charleston's got a 25% chance. San Diego's got a 75% chance, and Louisiana and Vegas are win and in, and the winner of Fort Worth Alamo City gets the number 1 spot. All right, that'll do it. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you tomorrow night as SFL action continues. Thanks, crew.